In this spicy episode, I give you all the reasons why you should vote for Donald Trump this November. Then I talk about people who post obvious political memes, then tell you they are just giving out the facts because they think you are stupid. I'm Doug Berger, and this is Secular Left. If you've been following the 2024 presidential election, you know quite a bit has happened recently. It started out where we had two old white men running for president. We had President Joe Biden, who was going to run for re-election, and former President Donald Trump, who believes that he should have won in 2020, even though the vote count and the electoral college count went against him. And so that's been going on for, almost a year or so, year and a half. And what I couldn't wrap my mind around was why, like some recent polling showed that Trump was ahead by a couple of points in some of these battleground states. And I just had trouble wrapping my head around it because the guy has there's no reason to vote for him. There just isn't. You get these conservatives and these people that drape themselves in the flag, and they'll tell you, well, you got to have character, you got to have military service, you got to be a good businessman, you have to have character, you have to have a good marriage and kids and a dog, and Trump has none of this stuff. He's a serial adulterer. He treats his kids pretty shabbily. He's had multiple kids with multiple women. He is a convicted sex offender. He's had multiple felony count indictment. He's had a felony conviction for election interference. Up until recently, when a judge that he appointed when he was president cut him loose on his classified documents indictment unfairly. And, and he thought that those secret documents belonged to him. And we know what his record was as president. The job market tanked, the economy tanked, and he failed to respond effectively to the COVID pandemic. And he's stupid. He's a moron. And you just see these older white people just lapping this up. So when they showed that between Biden and Trump was leading some of these states, I'm sorry, I just didn't believe it. But I could see why people would want to vote for Trump. I really do. If you're an older, middle-aged to older white person, you remember back in the old days how things were, how's that go? Women were women and a cigar was a good smoke and minorities knew their place and everything was good in the world. And you just can't take the fact that your demographic is shrinking. And pretty soon you're going to be outnumbered. The white heterosexual people in this country are going to be outnumbered. And I can understand it. I can understand the backlash. So you go for, the guy and they say, well, he tells it like it is. Yeah, he sounds like my racist grandfather. Let me tell you about my racist grandfather, Wilbur. He used to, in his old age, when he was in his 80s and 90s, He used to sit on his porch and yell at the Hispanic kids in his neighborhood. He would call them racial slurs for Hispanic people. And what they did was they vandalized his house, they egged his house. That's how much they appreciated being called those names. And he always had a grievance with everybody. Everybody at some point had done him wrong. He had a falling out, or not a falling out. He had a dispute with the city that he lived in because he lived on an unimproved street, and they wanted to improve it. Well, if you know what happens when a city wants to improve a previously unimproved street, that means that not only do you lose part of your property, but you have to pay for the improvements. They assess a special tax. So if they put in a sidewalk and sewers, they charge you on your property tax. That's just how that system works. And he would troop down to the city hall and complain, and he was just not a nice guy. And there wasn't one time that I thought that he should have been elected president. For me, somebody who's a president, you don't have to be a likable guy. You don't have to be best friends with everybody, but you gotta be at least a decent human being, and you treat other human beings decently, even if you don't like them. I used to tell people, acquaintances of mine who would rail against LGBT people. It's like, why do they have to rub our noses in it? I would tell them, look, you don't have to like it. You don't have to be gay. You just have to be decent. And people do it every day. People do it every day. If you go to a store or something and there's an employee that you don't like, you don't harass them, you don't yell at them, and you just get on with your life. And so, I can see, though, I understand why some people want to vote for Trump. It's because they don't care about other people but themselves. They're narcissistic, they're selfish, and they're bigoted, just like Trump himself. So he's the perfect candidate for them. And the other thing about Trump is he's only as good as the last multi-billionaire who's talked to him. They just had a story this week where he's been trying to get Peter Thiel, the weirdo billionaire tech guy, to support his campaign. And what does he do? He selects J.D. Vance, one of Peter Thiel's proteges, as his vice president. The guy has no qualifications to be vice president. He's barely been a senator. And then all this weird stuff about Vance comes out, about how he wanted to have sex with a couch, and his comments from 2020 and 2021 where he complains about childless couples. Real fascist stuff. Like, you got to have kids. It's that replacement. You can't replace me. We're white. We're losing numbers. We need to get our numbers up. That's the kind of BS that Vance was talking about. That's the undertone of it. Vance is just as fake as Trump. Vance says that he's from Appalachia and he grew up in a terrible childhood, and he pulled himself up by his bootstraps, and he didn't get hooked into that welfare slavery that government puts on poor people from Appalachia. It's all hogwash. He never grew up in Appalachia. His family moved from Appalachia before he was even born. He lived in Middletown, Ohio, a suburb of Cincinnati. He summered with his grandparents in Appalachia, so at least he had exposure to it. And so he said in a speech the other day that he drinks Diet Mountain Dew, and he said, I'll probably get called racist for that. Well, he is Appalachia like Diet Mountain Dew is Appalachia. I'm telling you. That's how fake that guy is. I got his book, that Hillbilly Elegy or whatever it's called. I couldn't even get through like the first couple of chapters because it just oozed this contemptuous, I'm rich, you're not, you're poor, you need to be punished. And that's another reason to vote for Trump. If you hate the poors, if you want to punish them. There was an article I just read today about, and I'm not saying that this guy that I'm going to talk about is a Republican like Trump or anything like that, but it was this rich guy who told these lower income kids in Chicago, if you do these things, if you join this program that I'm starting up with my family foundation and you do these requirements, I will help you pay for college. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good deal. Well, the article was that his family foundation abruptly closed up shop in July. And he's left high and dry some of these kids that were expecting $2,500 to help pay for their college. Well, in the details of the article, the requirements just boggled my mind. You had to maintain a average, grade point average. You had to go to a particular college that this program selected for you. You couldn't deviate from it. And a lot of these colleges were small liberal arts colleges, and a lot of these kids were black. And a lot of these small colleges they were being sent to were not majority black. They had hardly any black people in it. Some of them were outright racist, but they had these huge requirements for this program. And if you failed, they would cut you off. That's how poor people are punished in this country, is they're overly regulated. Meanwhile, Donald Trump steals from foundations and gets a slap on the wrist. He stole from a foundation for veterans and gets a slap on the wrist. And they're like, well, don't do that again, Donald. You just can't raise money anymore. That's all they said. Then there's the question about whether or not he was really shot or hit by a bullet during the assassination attempt. They're hiding that. You would think that somebody as fascist as Donald Trump would parade that crap around with proof, but there's been no proof. They've been silent about it, much like his medical history when he was president. The press used to go nuts because they could never get any actual facts about his health because he refused to release it, which was unheard of for a president. That's one of the things that you get released to the press to figure out, if the president can do his job. So that got all thrown into a tither when Joe Biden dropped out of the race and he handed the torch to Kamala Harris. Well, I knew for a fact that would make Trump's head explode. So here's another reason why you should vote for Trump if you're a racist. Because he was, for some unknown reason, he was invited to be questioned at the National Black Journalists Conference in Chicago this week. And he starts off by questioning whether or not Kamala Harris was actually black. He says, for years, he said that she was an Indian. And then all of a sudden she became black. Well, is she black or is she Indian? What a fucking racist thing to say, And then he starts in on the questioners who happen to be black reporters, and he's always attacked black reporters, especially black female reporters. He doesn't like women anyway. He doesn't like taking any guff from any woman. That's what he used to do to Hillary all the time. Any woman that went after him really tried to dress them down in a very, very awkward and cringy way. And so he's like challenging these reporters at this conference, and people were booing him. And I guess according to a news report I read, his quote interview unquote lasted 34 minutes, and then his people got him out of there. And then he tried to blame that he was invited under false pretenses, that he believed that his opponent would be there. And see, that's what a racist would think. My opponent is black, a black woman. I'm going to this black reporters conference, so I assume that she's going to be there because all black people hang out together. For more information about any of the topics covered in this episode, check out our show notes at secularleft.us. It just still amazes me that people even are thinking about it, about voting for him. I just don't understand it, and there's some both-siderism people that are like, well, we need to understand the Trump voter. I perfectly understand the Trump voter. Like I said, well, I don't think my grandpa would have voted for Trump because he was an FDR Democrat. And usually the FDR Democrats voted Democrat no matter what. But I know people like Trump. I've been around people like Trump. Some of the people that I went to school with have turned out like people like Trump. Just the other day, I had a school chum, a former school chum, somebody that I went to elementary school, so I've known them for over 50 years. They posted a meme on their Facebook page, and it was just some words. It wasn't really a picture, and it said it was dated November 20th, 2020. And it said gas prices, $1.80 a gallon, and interest rates, 2.4% or something like that. And then whoever posted it had the text, I'm just putting this here now so it will show up on my memories page so we could see what it was like. All right. Well, first of all, somebody who posts something like that and claims it's not political is full of crap. Because that specific date, November 2020, that was in the middle of the pandemic. The reason why gas prices were $1.80 a gallon is because nobody was driving anywhere. Demand cratered in November. Even with Thanksgiving, I think the AAA page I looked at, they had the average price per gallon around Thanksgiving at $2.12. And so the interest rate I couldn't speak to because I don't invest or buy houses or anything. All right. So I just casually made the comment. I said, well, this is kind of misleading because this was from the pandemic. And so this person that posted it fell all over themselves trying to play coy. Like they weren't trying to be political. They were just stating the facts. So then I kind of twisted the bear a little bit, poked the bear a little bit. I said, kind of like the people that post that picture of the McDonald's menu board from 1973 when Big Macs were 65 cents and then complain about how capitalism has robbed them of their childhood. Oh man, they got pissed. They got pissed when I wrote that. Maybe I shouldn't have wrote that. They didn't unfriend me, but I'm thinking that's probably going to come up. I kind of backed out of it, and some of their friends started ganging up on me. So I realized, if you're that's the thing. If you're at Facebook and you have an open account, like you don't limit who can comment on your page, and you post something political, you better well be able to defend what you post. I do. You know, and so I was telling my Facebook friends, I said, I've only had to unfriend one conservative from my account. And that was a long time ago. And that was just because he was flaming racist. That's the one thing I will not tolerate is racist people. You know, and then I had this other friend that I went to high school with who is a conservative, and we've had debates before, and he hasn't unfriended me. And it's not like I'm looking for common ground. I'm not looking for common ground. I just want you guys to tell the truth. If you're trying to persuade people, just posting facts doesn't persuade people. You got to put it into context and explain why this particular fact is important. You know, what I assumed that they were doing by posting that about the gas prices during the pandemic was to support Trump, but not actually say they were supporting Trump. Because we get a bunch of these yahoos saying about how prices were so much lower when Trump was president. Well, that was because it was the pandemic. The economy cratered. You know, they had to, like, I think it was 3 different pandemic relief bills. You know, remember when everybody got, I think it was about 3 checks for like $600, $700 a piece, depending on if you didn't have kids, or if you had kids, you got more. You know, that was pandemic relief money. Because the economy cratered, people were out of work. And and so after that was over, then the Republicans just thought it was business as usual. And then they started bitching about spending all that money. And so that's why Joe Biden had to come in and clean everything up. And he finally got, you know, the economy is doing the best it's done in years. Better than the Trump years. Yeah, we have a huge deficit, and it just seems like the Republicans only care about the deficit when it's about helping people. And that's another reason why you should vote for Donald Trump, is that you don't want to help other people. Yeah. Just look up that Project 2025. That lays out, that's Trump's Mein Kampf. To put it that way. For those not as well versed in history, Mein Kampf laid out the roadmap of how Hitler was going to take power and get rid of the Jews. And he wrote it several years before. I think he wrote it in the 1920s, you know, when he was in prison. Yeah. And then he ended up becoming chancellor in 1933. And then the rest, as they say, is history. Well, hindsight is 2020, and a lot of historians in the modern times believe that had they paid attention to that book, they might have been able to have stopped Hitler sooner, maybe. So that's what Project 2025 is. It is Trump's Mein Kampf, and I'm sure he would take that as a compliment. But that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. I had some other things I was going to talk about today, but I was really, really energized to talk about this, to give you reasons why you should vote for Trump. You know, and it's still going to be touch and go. I like Kamala Harris. As I said earlier, that was probably the best choice of a replacement that they had. I really didn't want them to do a replacement. I just believed that it was all made up drama by the political elites and the media to force Biden out. You know, and then the Trump campaign actually thought that they were going to win. I don't think that they are going to win. I didn't think they were going to win. He has not won a popular vote. Trump has not won a popular vote for president. And I don't see that happening. And to be honest, when I saw some of the recent interviews and speeches from Joe Biden, he lost a step. He was having some issues. But that's another reason why you should vote for Trump, because Trump's cognitive problems aren't as obvious. Well, nope, I reverse that. They are just as obvious as Joe Biden's. Getting names wrong, rambling about bullshit like batteries and sharks. And batteries and sharks. Oh my God. And telling Christian nationalists that if they voted for him, they would never have to vote again, that he would fix it. And all these randos and political operatives are saying he was just joking. Ha ha ha. He wasn't joking. Read the book, 2020, Project 2025. All you have to do is just do the ultra voter suppression, and the Christian nationalists would never technically have to vote again. Because once Trump gets into power, he's not leaving. Now, the one thing that I do need to warn people about, though, is I really, really believe we're going to see a lot of shenanigans surrounding the election this year. Especially with Kamala Harris on the ticket. A lot of the things that, that he's had, the Republicans have these lawyers that are all set to go to sue everybody. And in some of these battleground states, they have Trump loyalists in place who won't certify the vote, which is something that they're not allowed to do. They're not allowed to refuse to certify the vote. So that'll go into court. So I'm really thinking that Biden's going to be president past probably January 21st of, well, he could resign. He could resign like the day before, and Kamala would be the interim president. Because there's got to be a president. Well, I see what they're thinking. They're thinking that Kamala and Biden would be out of office, and then Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, will take over. But I'm telling you right now, I'm really thinking that it's going to be a clean sweep for the Democrats in November in the House and in the Senate. They're going to win back control of the House because the Republican majority is razor thin. They can't afford to lose any more people. And I really think that people are just fed up with these cultural wars and this bullshit from Mike Johnson and this Christian nationalism, and Project 2025 scares people. And you can tell the news media is worried because they're trying not to talk about it being dangerous and scaring people. They're just trying to call it weird. I don't know how many articles I've seen this week where it's weird this, weird that. That's the new mantra, is weird. That kind of disarms it. And it doesn't need to be disarmed. We're staring in the face of fascism, my friends. And it's going to look like January the 6th was just a test run. And I really think that it's going to be one of those things where they're going to want to take it to the U.S. Supreme Court to find out who won, and they expect the Supreme Court to give it to Trump. I'm telling you right now. And even if that happens, they are not going to have the Congress. I just know that. I just know that the House of Representatives is going to go to the Democrats, and they're going to keep the Senate. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. So I hope you agree with me. You should vote for Donald Trump. If you've gotten this far. No, don't vote for Donald Trump. Please. Don't be a moron. Don't act like a moron. Like you've pulled yourself up by your bootstraps and you didn't need any assistance and you got everything that you have today entirely on your own, and the government just gets in the way, blah, blah, blah. That is bullshit. So grow a pair and protect this country for future generations and vote for the Democratic ticket, whoever is on it. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. You can check out more information, including links to sources used, in our show notes on our website at secularleft.us. Secular Left is hosted, written, and produced by Doug Berger, and he is solely responsible for the content. Send us your comments, either using the contact form on the website or by sending us a note at comments@secularleft.us. Our theme music is Dank and Nasty, composed using Amplify Studio. See you next time.